This is the main passage at the Canton Fair. Some visitors look like they were from Russia, but 98% of them were Chinese. Around 4 p.m. is when the crowd is the biggest. Over here, some people look like they might be of Indian descent, but again, it's mostly Chinese. These are all locals from Guangzhou. Look at the slippers, they're all Chinese. It's 10:30 in the morning, and there isn't a single foreigner here, only Chinese people. Over at Hall 4 at 4 p.m., and again at 1:20 p.m., you could clearly see with your own eyes that this place is much quieter than before.
On April 15th, the China Import and Export Fair, also known as the Canton Fair, opened in Guangzhou. This year's exhibition will run until May 5th. The video shows a mostly empty venue, with very few visitors walking around. It's a stark contrast to the usual packed scenes. In fact, some clips show that there are more exhibitors than guests. One exhibitor said the venue felt too quiet, and even when some clients came into the halls, they didn't seem to be from the U.S. Most of them appeared to be from Asia, Africa, or Latin America.
今天是广交会的第一天，我现在在的是 C 区。
Today is the first day of the Canton Fair. I'm now on the 4th floor of Area C. Over the past 2 or 3 years, the lighting sector has been pushed to the most remote part of the fair, Area C. Our Shenzhen group got moved all the way to the top floor. It's now 4 p.m., and barely anyone came this morning.
今天我大概是在中午的时候进入展馆。
Entered the hall around noon today and went to our booth. When I looked around, I wondered, what type of clients are these? Are they from Europe, from the US, or from Asia, Africa, and Latin America? I think everyone watching this can see very clearly what kind of clients these are. Even taxi drivers near the Canton Fair venue could feel how quiet things were.
好惨啊，谁懂啊?
It's so sad. Who can understand this? Today's the 14th, and tomorrow's the 15th. The Canton Fair is about to start. But why is Guangzhou South Railway Station still so quiet? Why is no one coming out to take taxis? What's going on? I really don't get it.
The Canton Fair is considered a barometer of China's foreign trade. It's held twice a year in spring and autumn in Guangzhou. This 137th edition has been called a life or death moment for the world's factory. With U.S.-China tariffs ramping up, the scene at the fair can only be described as dismal. Some exporters say the U.S. market has basically frozen, and American clients are completely absent. A few exhibitors said their major American buyers didn't show up at all this year. On social media, some business owners shared, "Our company doesn't even attend the Canton Fair anymore, only industry-specific exhibitions." Another said, "Now it's more profitable to sell booth space than to sell products." One more added, "The fair's been in decline for over 10 years. The companies still attending are only doing it to show people they haven't gone bankrupt yet." A furniture seller from Fujian told overseas media that business has been tough for years. Last month's furniture expo in Shenzhen was already disappointing. His company sticks to the traditional export model for the US and European markets, but now their foreign trade business has taken a huge hit. He said their clients never visit factories, so the only chance to meet them is at the trade fair. If they're lucky, they can promote a few new products and prove they're still in business. It's not easy to get a booth at the Canton Fair. If a company skips even 1 or 2 years, their spot gets taken. This time, officials said that over 30,000 companies are participating in the fair. Around 1,600 booths are for imported goods. As of April 8th, nearly 170,000 foreign buyers had been pre-registered. Among them, 72% are from Belt and Road countries, 27% from BRICS, 14% from the Middle East, and only 10% from Europe and the US. But according to a data broker who collects vendor information, there are actually about 24,700 Chinese companies participating, mostly factories. A worker from a lighting factory in Zhongshan, Guangdong, said they saw more buyers from Ukraine, Russia, and some African countries. There were none from Germany, France, or the US. People in China are talking a lot about how the Canton Fair has lost its popularity. Some business owners said, "We haven't really seen European or American customers in 5 years." Others added, "It's hard to find new foreign clients at the fair. There are just too many local competitors." One vendor, who has been attending for 16 years, said, "Last time I got half as many business cards as usual. Since the pandemic, things have felt cold. The last fair already felt discouraging." A business owner from Shenzhen had already predicted that this year's fair would do worse than last year. He said last year was already bad, but this year could be even worse. That's because 2/3 of the world is dealing with U.S. tariffs, which makes things unpredictable. Since April 4th, the U.S. had continued to raise tariffs on Chinese goods. According to a White House statement, tariffs on Chinese imports have jumped from 145% to 245%. The statement said President Trump imposed a 10% tariff on all countries on what he called America's Liberation Day. He also placed higher retaliatory tariffs on countries with large trade deficits with the U.S. to create a fairer trade environment and protect national security. Over 75 countries have since approached the U.S. to negotiate new trade deals. Some of those higher tariffs have been suspended, but China responded with its own retaliatory measures. The statement specifically mentioned that the 245% tariff on China was a direct result of China's retaliation. After Trump announced reciprocal tariffs on April 4th, the Chinese government imposed a 34% retaliatory tariff on U.S. goods and vowed to keep fighting. On April 7th, Trump warned that if China didn't withdraw its response, he would raise tariffs by another 50% on April 9th. In response, the Chinese government allowed the offshore yuan to fall, hitting a historic low of 7.4 on April 8th. Then on April 9th, Trump raised tariffs by another 50%, bringing the total to 125%. That same night, the Chinese government raised its own tariffs to 84%, effective from noon on April 10th. Shortly after, the U.S. raised its total tariff rate to 145% on Chinese imports, and China responded by increasing its tariffs on all U.S. goods to 125% starting on April 12th. Beijing has stated it will not raise tariffs beyond the current 125%. Amid this escalating trade war, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked whether the U.S. might delist Chinese companies from American stock exchanges. He said all options are on the table. Many believe this could be another strategic move by the U.S. against the Chinese government. Targeting Chinese stock listed in the U.S. directly hits the interests of powerful Chinese elites who are tied to these companies. Economist Li Hengqing at the U.S.-based Institute for Information and Strategy told foreign media that the standoff between Beijing and Trump is like a game of chicken. Sooner or later, someone has to blink. If China goes several months without export orders and a large number of companies collapse, it will leave this year's 12 million college graduates without jobs and lead to social unrest. At that point, Xi Jinping would have no choice but to blink. The tariff battle between the U.S. and the Chinese government has pushed the total tariff levels on both sides above 100%. If this continues, it could severely shrink trade between the two countries and even cause a full economic decoupling. A decoupling would be a major blow to China's economy, especially its export sector. These pressures could cause many businesses to go bankrupt, which would trigger unemployment. Life for ordinary people could become extremely difficult. According to the latest data from China's General Administration of Customs, exports in March 2025 rose by 12.4% compared to the previous year, far exceeding the expected 4.6% increase. It was the highest in 5 months and reversed the 3% decline seen in February. But several analysts said the surge was due to companies rushing shipments before the new tariffs took effect. It was not driven by real demand. Julian Evans Pritchard, chief China economist at Capital Economics, warned in his report that exports could drop sharply in the coming months. He predicted it could take years for China to return to previous export levels. On April 14th, Lu Daliang, spokesperson for the China's Customs Administration, admitted at a press conference in Beijing that Chinese exports are facing a complex and severe external environment, but he still insisted that the sky won't fall. Many in China's business sector disagree. They believe the sky has already fallen. A person working in foreign trade posted online, saying, "The sky has collapsed. All our U.S. orders have been canceled. The economy was already in trouble, and now this makes it worse. I don't even know what to do anymore. Should I try selling in the domestic market? I've never done live stream sales. I have no idea how it works." Other people shared similar frustrations. One person said the trade war has hit their factory, which makes children's products for export to the U.S. The entire operation has come to a halt, and workers are stuck at home doing nothing, waiting for updates. The tariff war has also caused a sharp drop in factory orders. Workers now work less than 5 hours a day, and it's hard to make ends meet. Some business owners are even using their own money to help their staff. One Chinese business owner said, "With U.S. tariffs going through the roof, foreign trade just doesn't work anymore. I still have about 20 million yuan worth of goods in storage. Today, I'm selling it all off at a 90% discount." At this year's Canton Fair, some manufacturers were openly complaining about how bad things have gotten. Reuters reported that on April 15th, a senior executive from a Chinese medical technology company said all their U.S. orders disappeared after the U.S. imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods. Candice Lee, a marketing manager at Shenzhen Kaimen Group, said, "This is about survival for our company, because 60 to 70% of our business depends on American clients." Kobe Huang, a sales rep from Shenzhen Landun Environmental Technology, said sales in Europe have gone up slightly, but the U.S. market is completely frozen. Levi Spence, president of the U.S. importing company Air Essentials, was at the fair checking out fragrance products, but he said he has no clear purchasing plans. He explained, "Because every day I wake up, there's a different tariff." Many exporters said they've already started moving their production bases or sales markets outside of China to avoid relying on the U.S. market. Henry Han, the sales manager at Apexto Electronics, said many of their clients used to ship components to a third country for final assembly in order to avoid tariffs, but those plans are now on hold because those countries might also face high tariffs. On April 2nd, President Trump imposed a 46% reciprocal tariff on Vietnam and a 17% tariff on the Philippines. But for the next 90 days, those tariffs will drop to 10% while the U.S. negotiates bilateral trade deals with those countries. Commenting on the quiet scene at the Canton Fair, U.S. economist Davy J. Huang told foreign media that it shows China has lost its pricing power in export trade. He explained that the Canton Fair has long been a platform for China to showcase its exports. After joining the WTO, this fair helped China's economy grow rapidly, but now it has mostly turned into a space for exhibitors from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. In the past, China set the prices as the world's factory. Now it's a buyer's market. The U.S. and Europe are the biggest buyers and are now setting the rules for global trade. Huang said the decline of the Canton Fair reflects the growing pessimism about China's economy and shows that the business world no longer has confidence in what lies ahead. China exports hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods to the U.S., accounting for about 1/7 of its total exports. Now, products can't even be shipped out. China also used to export indirectly to the U.S. through third countries, but even that is now restricted. Over 70 countries are negotiating with the U.S., but the Chinese Communist Party is still trying to confront it. If the tariff war keeps going, the damage to China's economy will be far greater than that to the U.S. According to the BBC, Amy from Guangdong Sailing Trade Company had a booth at the Canton Fair, where she was selling ice cream machines. Most of her buyers were from the U.S., including Walmart. But she said, "We've already stopped production. All our products are sitting in the warehouse." At the Canton Fair, almost every booth tells the same story. Mr. Xu from Zhejiang Shu'erbo Technology said he was about to take a few Australian buyers to lunch. They came looking for cheap products and wanted to negotiate lower prices. But he said, "It's just too hard for us. About half of our company's goods are sold to the U.S." This year, the Canton Fair is close to shutting down because of the tariff war. In fact, even last year, the had already lost its former glory. According to official data from 2024, the 135th Canton Fair covered 1.55 million square meters and had 74,000 booths, with more than 29,000 companies participating. Among them, 28,600 were export companies, over 4,300 were first-time participants, and 680 were import-focused companies. On May 9, 2023, Chinese authorities said the Canton Fair had reached its largest scale ever. It attracted hundreds of thousands of buyers from over 220 countries and regions, and more than 35,000 companies participated in person. The Canton Fair already felt quiet last October. People were wondering why it wasn't drawing attention anymore. It used to be the biggest event in the foreign trade industry. Every year when the fair started, foreign trade would become a hot topic across the country. But now, apart from basic announcements about the opening, there's barely any buzz about it. Some analysts point out that part of the reason is the organizers' conservative approach to promotion. Others believe companies are being more cautious about spending. Many foreign trade companies are cutting back on how much they invest in the fair. Some even share booths with other firms to save money.
广交会为什么不火了？
The cost of a booth at the Canton Fair has always been high. Once you add up the booth fee and decoration costs, each one can cost over 100,000 yuan. And even with all that spending, the results are hit or miss. For example, last year, the energy storage and solar power sections were booming. Some companies received over 1,000 business cards in a single day, but the lighting section was completely deserted.
Most of the buyers at this year's fair came from Belt and Road countries, the Middle East, and Africa. These clients don't have high product requirements. They mainly care about low prices and flexible payment terms. Because of anti-dumping policies, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and a global economic slowdown, many buyers have cut back on purchasing and are just watching the market. Another reason for the decline in foot traffic is that many Chinese manufacturers have started going to overseas trade shows. They prefer to connect directly with local customers abroad. In 2024, the Canton Fair already showed signs of fatigue. The glory days were gone. Now in 2025, with the tariff war escalating, things have only gotten worse. Exhibitors are standing in near empty halls, saying business feels colder than winter. The total transaction volume at the 2024 fair had already dropped by nearly 30% from its pre-pandemic peak. This year's spring session is expected to hit a new low. As the war continues, European and American companies are also moving their supply chains out of China. U.S. buyers are nearly absent, and other Western customers are staying away because of cost concerns. Overseas orders have dropped sharply. This year's fair can't be saved by trying to boost domestic sales. The outcome is bleak, and this downturn may continue until the last bit of momentum is completely lost.